Well, good morning, everyone.
Morning. Good morning. Morning. Look who's here first. What a shock.
Oh, hey, Carrie, what's up? Right.
Oh, I can't add her. Huh. Okay. Apparently, I can't do anything on this end. Usually, I can. So, well,
Give
I
him a
can't
chance to
display
follow
her
in.
thing. So,
Oh, here you go.
there it is.
There we go. All right. Joel, how's your week been?
My week has been all right. It's getting a little warm around these parts. Probably nothing like where you are. But
Right now, it's not that bad, actually. We actually got some decent rain finally.
oh, really? Wow.
Huh.
What is this rain you speak of?
Well, it's this thing where, like, water comes from the sky,
Ooh.
and it's weird. Like, we go without it for so long, and then it happens, and it's always like, and then that's it.
Apparently, according to Carrie, Michael's still talking. So,
Of course. Hey, Lucas.
yeah.
Looks like they missed you yesterday.
Yeah, I not sure. So I'm glad I was missed. It's good to be missed.
Yeah, sorry I couldn't make last week. Just work stuff came up.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we'll go ahead and give some a couple minutes, and then we'll go and get started with this topic. It is a juicy one that we've all thought about. That's always been in the back of my mind, but now I believe this will come to the forefront very quickly. All right, so let's go ahead and get this in. So let's just start with my boy, Dr. Steve Turley. Here we go.
While the legacy media stays silent, Mexican cartels just made their biggest mistake yet. They pushed so far into American territory that President Trump just unleashed the most devastating military response in decades. Over 4,500 Marines and sailors are now deploying to the Caribbean with F-35 fighter jets, nuclear submarines, and guided missile destroyers. But here's the data that'll shock you and explain why this military action was absolutely inevitable. Stick with me to the very end of this video.
We'll skip ahead past the intros and get right to the content. Here we go.
Let me give you some mind-blowing data here. These Mexican cartels generated over $13 billion in 2024 from human trafficking alone. You heard that right. 13 billion. That's up from 500 million in 2018. And that's what Biden and the Democrats did. Their open border policies created one of the most lucrative black markets on the planet. Now, to put that in perspective, 13 billion makes them larger than 64% of Fortune 500 companies. And that's just human trafficking. That don't even include their drug revenues, which the DEA estimates to be well into the multi-billions. So we're not dealing with street gangs anymore, gang. We're dealing with multinational criminal corporations with military-grade equipment, sophisticated logistics networks, and annual revenues that dwarf entire state budgets. But here's what should terrify every American. According to declassified DEA intelligence, Mexican cartels now operate in over 1,200 U.S. cities across all 50 states. That's not drug distribution. That's territorial occupation. The Sinaloa cartel alone operates in at least 75 American cities. The Gulf cartel controls operations in 37 cities. These aren't isolated drug deals. These are command and control structures operating on American soil. But territorial control was just phase one. Phase two was chemical warfare against American citizens. Fentanyl killed over 107,000 Americans in 2022. Unprecedented military deployment that promises to crush these cartels once and for all. But first, gang.
Then he goes to a sponsor. So let's just chew on that for a minute. The data he just gave us. Like, it's easy to just think of the cartel as this mysterious dark force that's just floating in the ether. But when you realize how far they have infiltrated our country, how do you respond to that? Like, how do you tackle that? So before we get into it, Joel, like, what are your immediate thoughts from that?
Where I live, this is a very big deal.
Oh
Obviously,
yeah.
San Diego, right? We're right across the border from Tijuana, really. And we've kind of lived with the corruption down. Every once in a while, you hear, and this usually around here, but also nationally, there's something happens in Tijuana where 4 bodies are found hanging from a bridge,
Mhm.
or they find bodies in barrels, burned in barrels, just stuff that. And this is right across the border. I'm probably 40 miles from the border now, but
Mhm.
then the further you go down south into San Diego County, the further up the Mexican border seems to get. It's still the actual border is in the same place, but Mexico is moving north. So it's kind of obvious here. And one thing happened this was years ago, but there was an assassination in Tijuana,
Mhm.
and the local news broadcast it. And am I coming through choppy? Can you?
No, you seem okay on my end.
Okay, on this end, I'm a little choppy. Sorry about that. But there was an assassination, and then one of the local news showed the video of the response after the assassination. All these police came in all these SUVs, Ford, Chevy, Dodge, all these Toyotas, and immediately the news channel was flooded with calls saying, "That's my Blazer, that's my Bronco, that's my Toyota, that was
Oh, wow.
stolen 2 weeks ago. That was my thing that was stolen." So
Mm.
people, this is the problem with Mexico. The cars were getting stolen from the U.S., brought down to Mexico, and being taken by the police down there.
Mhm.
So Mexico is as corrupt a place as you can find. And I was watching something where Trump was talking about the president of Mexico, who's a woman, and he's like, "Oh, she's a fine lady, but she's scared to death of the cartels." And everybody down there is scared to death of the cartels. So Trump is doing what Trump does, right? He's a get it done guy. He's not the typical politician. How many times over the years have our politicians done lip service to the human trafficking and the drug trafficking that's coming across the border? And
Mhm.
I was just involved last summer, I think it was. Yeah,
Mhm.
I was on a jury for a lady that it was a federal jury, a lady that was caught with, I think, 3 Chinese people in her trunk at the border. And it's just this lady. She wasn't this young lady. She wasn't one of the head of the cartel. She was one of these people that the cartel takes and says, "You better do this, or your family back here is, who knows what they'll do," right? And and she was guilty as can be. It was a mistrial because one of the jurors didn't show up. But they asked me after the trial, "What did you think?" I said, "She better get a new lawyer, or she better make a deal because she's caught red-handed." But that's just a drop in the ocean for what's coming across. And so we can't solve it by just the border agents. That won't do it. So
Lucas makes a good point. It's
yeah,
not just the southern border; it's also the northern border too.
yeah, because
Um,
these cartels are not just, like I said, they're not gangs. They're sophisticated operations, and you have to put forth a sophisticated operation to stop them. So
Later in the video that we were watching, Turley explains how, for so many years, we've approached this problem as a law enforcement problem. Law enforcement should deal with it. It's a border issue. That hasn't worked. And let me explain why that's a terrible strategy. I'm going to show you a picture here. Everyone can see this. This is from 2016. Just imagine how much more complex it is now. Every color here represents a different faction of the cartel all across Mexico. And this is just Mexico. We're not even counting other Latin American countries. So like Venezuela or Colombia, like we have to reframe our focus to who the cartel actually is. And then furthermore, like the stats that were just given in the video before, this is not some distant force that's threatening us. This is a force that has infiltrated multiple networks in our country. And the thing is, you'll find dozens of videos on YouTube of mostly veterans or military people talking on podcasts, news interviews, explaining it's like, look, the military perspective on this is completely different. Because you're not just talking about taking out a gang, you're talking about going up against a system that has lined the pockets of Americans who are in power for decades. You don't just have to go down south and take out a few people. No, you have to cut off the source completely and then make sure there's no power vacuum. That's what happened in Iraq. There's a massive power vacuum, right? And then in Afghanistan, that was a mess to begin with because we're dealing with tribes, literal tribes that literally lived in caves that never wanted to change. But here, it's something like if you wanted to compare Mexico, just the cartel to previous operations, this would be the hardest and most complex we've ever dealt with. And so we have to frame it correctly. That is how powerful they actually are. So then what do you do? Right? How do you combat that? How do you deal with that? And so, in my opinion, that's what this current administration is actually trying to do. They're trying to, let me share this screen here. They're trying to treat this like it should have been treated. Not as law enforcement, but as a direct military operation using the full force of our military, which thank goodness has not. It has been all the wokeness in the military is now dead, which is awesome.
I would still want to stick a few knives in it, make sure it is. But yeah.
Oh yeah. But
it may be dead, but the body's not quite cold yet. So
that's the thing. You cannot fight an evil like this with a woke military. Right. You have to create a military force whose sole focus is to protect bodies and stack bodies. That's it.
Yeah.
But this is where we're at. This is reality, folks. It's not just a border issue now. It's now an actual international operation. So I don't know what's going to happen in the future. It's going to be very interesting to keep an eye on. But Joel, as Christians, I'm curious. How do we as Christians, how are we supposed to react to this real cartel threat? And not just internationally, but in our own cities. Like, how do you react to this?
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it? A couple different things come to mind. The figures that Steve Turley, Dr. Turley, were throwing out when it said he threw out the figure of 107,000 U.S. citizens killed by fentanyl a couple years ago. Well, they should got more specific on that, and most of those were young men. And as Christians, we need to decide what we think of our young men. And are we willing, in so many different ways, let alone the church yesterday, I would have talked about how I did talk a couple weeks ago about how young people, especially young men, are turning to Catholicism.
Mhm.
And yesterday I was going to talk about them coming to evangelicalism and what we have to offer, what Catholicism offers that we don't.
Mhm.
And that's a lot of it is the validation of them and their sense of right and wrong, right? And that's which is being muddled by all the wokeness around them, right? And our society just abandoning them basically and telling them they're toxic and telling them that the future is female and that there's no place for them. And that filters down into all aspects of their lives. And so fentanyl, just a chance to escape, and whatever fentanyl does, that whatever escape it provides for them, that seems to be worth doing to take their life, to potentially take their life. So we need to protect our young men. Really, we need to and engage them in this fight. Our young people in general. So, in that sense, Christians need to support that. And I think we were talking about in our emails. We were wondering what the biblical verse would apply to this, and I know you have one.
Mhm.
But I'm going back to what I was talking about earlier about Romans 13. And Vodi Balcom has a really good video on this that's out now, and he's talking about everybody. We talked during the, that thing. Remember that thing about 5 years ago?
Yeah.
He was talking about how people were really stressing the first two verses of Romans 13 about be subject to the governing authorities.
Right.
He goes, oh yeah, first two are easy. It's the third verses 3, 4, and 5 that are nobody talks about. Where the purpose of government is to fight evil. Okay, they're God's representatives to fight evil in the world, and we, as Christians, need to tell them that's their purpose, and that's what we didn't do, right? When we chose to close down. So now we need to be behind this. This is, and especially to protect our young people, and especially to protect our young men.
And I have the perfect, what you just said is perfect. Okay. I have the perfect follow-up to what you just mentioned from Romans. Okay, here we go. You're going to love this. This is from Deuteronomy.
I set you up pretty good there, didn't I?
Oh, yeah, this is great. This is from Deuteronomy. Okay, the context for this, people who are listening and watching, this is a part in the Old Testament when it's made very clear what will happen to your nation if you honor the Lord your God, and then what will happen if you don't do that. And this part is fascinating. This is one of the many things that will happen if you don't honor the Lord your God. Okay. Joel, if you could do me a favor and read that part for me.
The stranger who is among you will rise above you higher and higher, and you will go down lower and lower. He will lend to you, but you will not lend to him. He will be the head, and you will be the tail.
Oh, sorry. This is going to be Deuteronomy 28, 43 through 45. Of course, I forgot that. Now, this is the New American Standard Translation. Look at the NIV translation. This is interesting. Oh, wait, sorry. So NIV.
Yeah, you had it. There you go.
The foreigners who reside among you will rise above you higher and higher, but you will sink lower and lower. They will lend to you, but you will not lend to them. They will be the head, but you will be the tail. If that's not what's happening right now with the cartel, and I don't know what is.
Yeah.
And so,
and what's 45? What's 45 say?
Yeah, I will get to that. So the 45 basically says, "So all these curses shall come upon you and pursue you and overtake you until you are destroyed, because you would not obey the Lord your God by keeping His commandments and His statutes which He commanded you." To sum up, it's like that the stranger was just one of many things that will happen to your kingdom, your nation, if you do not honor the Lord your God. And so we already know, like, our country is obviously a great country, but it's fallen in a lot of areas. And so this part I want to finish up with. When we talk about how do we respond as Christians, I typed this into DuckDuckGo, right? And this was the generated response citing two articles here. read that for me if you could, please, Joel, and then we'll talk about that.
Let's see if I can see it here.
Oh, sorry.
Christians in America should view the cartel threat as a serious concern that impacts communities, particularly in areas where drug-related violence and crime are prevalent. It is important for believers to advocate for peace, support affected individuals, and to engage in community efforts to counteract the influence of such criminal organizations.
So I see that. I'm like, okay, that's a pretty safe, broad response, obviously. But here's the thing. Here's what I want to get your thoughts on. For something that is this pernicious, this dark, this evil, it's not just it's the human trafficking, it's the drug element, it's the power they have. Like, as Christians, do you just hope for peace? Do you just try to be peaceful, or do you go the next step and take action like the military is doing? I'm not saying be like the military. I'm just saying take more direct action and kill this evil. Like, what? How do we respond to that?
Well, again, a lot of different ways.
I'm sure a lot of Christians are thinking that way. It's like, what do I do? I'm in this community that's suffering, but clearly peace isn't working.
Well, yeah, and it's like I said, we need a worldview adjustment. Okay. And again, we need to see our leaders in this way. We need to see them as our protectors. And as like I said before, anybody that doesn't like Trump, look in the mirror. We've created these kind of problems, these kind of situations for years. Our politicians have, and we've been voting for these people because it's far away from us, and we may see it on the news, but there's so many other things to distract us. If we even watch the news anymore, we don't have who watches the news anymore, the news, right?
Yeah.
Because we have these, I don't have mine with me. Those little black things we have in our pockets are killing us.
Listening.
Yeah, that will be one of those things. Yeah. So we need to look at the mirror in so many of these situations, because we've created a society where our young people crave these drugs. And it's not just the young people either. I mean, it's all of us. Drug culture that started when I was a kid has just taken out the soul of this country. It's hollowed out the guts of this country. And let alone, and the human trafficking. I get very upset with some of my Christian brothers and sisters who focus on, the outrage of what's happening to the poor immigrants, and I'm like, do you realize what, and like I said, I was on a trial where some lady was, blackmailed or what do they call it? Extorted into, carrying these 3 guys across the border, and it was 3 men.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's nothing. Watch that movie again with Jim Caviezel about the
Sound of Freedom. Yep.
Yeah, Sound of Freedom. Watch that again. That's a real story. That's a true story
of someone taking action. And I don't expect everyone to be at his level.
No.
But at the end of the day, we as Christians need to really get the facts, look at the actual data, and then respond.
We have at our disposal hundreds of thousands of guys just like that. That's our military. And again, Trump is doing his job. He's seeing himself as God's appointed person to punish evildoers. And
now the Pentagon, thank goodness we have Pete Hegseth as the SecDef. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Like they are doing what the military is supposed to do, which is defend our nation. And this is
thank God that the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff isn't wearing a dress anymore.
Oh, shit, right?
I mean, look, other countries looking at that, what are they going to think? You've got a guy dressed as a woman as your head of your Chiefs of Staff. Why shouldn't the cartels have run wild? And
so we don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and it's a national. China is a big part of this too. They're the ones that are selling them all the pills that are killing our young men mostly. So what else can we do? But first of all, deal with our own appetites and addictions for this kind of thing. And second of all, support a person in office who finally sees his job in a biblical way. Whether or not you think he's a Christian or not, I don't care. All I have to do is look what he's doing. This guy has the right view of what his job is.
He's like, I have a duty, and my duty is to support and defend the Constitution of the United States, to defend my country that I was voted to lead. And how do you do that? By taking the fight to the enemy, by going directly at the source and killing the snake, killing it. But again, that process is going to be very dangerous, and it's very hard. It's not going to be like anything we've dealt with before. And I hope our military generals, our generals of every branch, will realize that you cannot approach this like we did with World War II, Vietnam, Korea, global war on terror, Desert Storm. It's a completely different mindset. And I know for a fact, all the military doctrine is going to change. From the generals all the way down to the privates. Like it's going to change drastically. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and it has to be kind of a permanent mindset. I was watching something a couple of days ago when someone was talking about they had actually talked to some of the cartel leaders down there. I don't know how they did, and the cartels are basically saying, "Well, just wait 4 years. Right. We'll bide our time."
Right.
Because Trump's this unicorn that's come through, and he's different than all the other American, politicians. We're just waiting for the old normal to come back. Mm-hmm. So again, this can't, like you say it over and over again, it can't just be Trump doing this stuff.
Right.
We can't be focusing on, Trump's going to do this. No. Yeah, Trump's going to do it now, but who's going to, is J.D. Vance going to be this kind of leader? Or is he going to slip back, into the George Bush modes? Pick your Bush. Which one is, is it going to be long-term or not? So, because it's wasted. It's, taking out Manuel Noriega 35 years ago, whatever it was. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was nice. It was, big headlines for Bush 1, but it didn't really do anything.
Well, that's the thing. As a kid growing up, all I knew of the cartel of this world was watching Clear and Present Danger.
Right.
A great classic movie. But that was made in the 80s.
Right.
It's still a thing. It's always been a thing. But now the level of infiltration is what makes this so dangerous.
Yeah.
And you got to be careful with how you proceed. So,
yeah.
As
we need a new strategy. We need a new strategy. And this seems to be a new strategy. So,
right. All right, sir. Well, we can go and finish up. Joel, if you can close out for us, I'd appreciate it.
No, just repeat my points that I made over and over. This is what leadership is supposed to do. And we need to make sure that we're following this leadership. It's our duty when our leaders take seriously their role as punishers of evil and protectors of society. We need to stand behind them. And that's what we have now. And we need to demand this of our leaders going forward. We now have the model, the new model for a new type of leadership.
Right.
And now this needs to be the new normal. We can't go back to the old normal.
Right.
Too many people die. Too many people suffer. Too many young girls come across the border. Too many young men, die of fentanyl.
And we as Christians need to do more than just hope for the best. No, like take action in whatever way you can, whatever thing you can do it. Because if you see evil and you do nothing about it, you become just as bad.
Right.
So,
and when you call evil good, fall into the trap of calling evil good and good evil, you're definitely on the wrong side of eternity with that.
Right.
So.
All right, Patriots, everyone have a great weekend. Great seeing you again, Joel. I will see you next week, sir.
And see you next week, everybody.
God is in charge.